G'day folks and welcome to another edition of Power BI Hack. This week I've got Matt Allington. He's Principal Consultant at Accelerator BI. He's a Microsoft Power BI MVP. He's got a long history in Power BI. He's one of the most respected and well-known Power BI MVPs, certainly in Australia and also around the world. He's a Power BI consultant, trainer, and really has a deep knowledge of DAX and Power Query. And so I'm really excited to chat to him. So coming up next is Matt Allington. Well, just wanted to quickly say thanks for joining me, Matt. It's awesome to have you on here. We're been following your blog, and obviously you've been a big contributor to the Power BI space for a long time. So it's very, very cool to have you do this.
Great to be here. Thank you very much. Looking forward to having a bit of fun.
Awesome. All right, so we're looking at some solar data today. Why don't you tell us a bit about this data?
Yeah, so I got my solar back in 2017, so what's that? It's about 4 years now. And in fact, this is the solar panel, the control panel that I have available for me. And you can see here actually that I've got sort of 4 years of data. So coming into September, we're into my 5th year, just showing me the consumption that we've had over the years. But when I bought the panels, I decided to get the data logging extra. Being a bit of a data guy, I thought that'd be a bit of fun. So literally this system tracks everything I'm doing in 15-minute blocks, how much I consume and how much I buy from the grid and how much I sell back to the grid and those sorts of things. And so there's this online portal, which is great. But of course, being Power BI guys like we are, we would prefer to sort of download the data and get into it. So, and I'm actually able to do that through here. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, there's no API that I can directly connect to, but I am able to come in here and pick a particular week. In fact, I haven't downloaded this week's data. So if I sort of have a look here, I sort of want to go back, and I've used this process of downloading sort of from Sunday to Saturday, so Sunday the 14th. So all I have to do is just go to this week, and then I just click on the CSV, and it just downloads that file. And then in a minute, I'll chuck that into the folder with the rest of the files. I'll just have to open up that folder. I think I'll just get it up here. It won't be a sec. So yeah, so that's the data, and I've just done I'll open up one of these in a second, but I'll just let me grab that last download. So here's the one that I just downloaded, 22nd. So this must be on UTC, and yeah, so basically this is what the data looks like. It's just a CSV extract. It's got the date and time, how many the consumption in watts. Now we've got there's actually, you can notice here there's 5 different columns. So consumption, what I'm selling, what I'm importing, what I consume myself, and what the system produces itself. So no surprise overnight.
Nothing happens.
Nothing. I'm consuming plenty, but not making too much.
And
yeah, literally every 15 minutes of the day, forever. So
awesome. Okay, so let me just have a quick, like a bit more of a detailed look. So that time column, it's a date time column. We've got 15-minute increments on our date time. So then consumption. So this is what you're using at your house.
Yep.
So you can say, so at night time, as you get your consumption goes.
Yeah, now something's happening here, and we can talk about that. And maybe people could speculate about what's going on here.
Yeah. What are you doing in the middle of the night that causes so much consumption? What time of year is it? So it's November.
Okay, it's summer. But this does happen all year round, but it tends to be a bit longer in summer than it is in winter. In fact, I mean, what we could do is there's another lot here that happens in the afternoon. So all right, I'll get you out of suspense. So I've got a pool, right? And so this is my pool filter kicking in. And so this is one of the first things I did when I bought my solar. Was I realized that I was running my pumps at a bad time of day when I was paying peak rates, and that saved me money. That alone, just getting that visual communication of what's going on. But we'll see that when we load the data.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll look a bit more into that. Okay, so that's cool. So we're seeing consumption, and then you've got your pool pump, which causes that consumption. So then export. This is extra energy you're sending back into the grid. Is that?
That's right. So
Yeah.
technically, if I take this system production, in this 15 minutes, I
Mm,
produce 504 watts. And that number should add up to this one plus this one. So you can see 504666, which is the number that's there.
yeah.
So what I produce, I use some of it myself, and whatever I've got left, I sell back to the grid. And in fact, one of the things that I need to do, we'll either get to it today or we won't,
Mm,
is I want to understand, is it now worth me buying a battery? Because when I
mm,
first put this in 4 years ago, the batteries were orders of magnitude $10,000 to $15,000, and I was getting sort of 12 to 13 cents for the energy that I sell. But the whole economics has changed, and so I'm getting less for the energy I sell back to the grid, and I'm paying more for the energy that I consume. And so the whole balance of whether a battery is affordable for me now has changed, and I
mm.
need to do that analysis. And so, regardless if we get to that today, Greg, I will be following up with this work
Yeah.
field to
Yeah.
determine whether I should buy a battery or not.
Awesome. Oh, hopefully we can, because that'd be a really interesting thing. We'll have to do a little bit. So if we're talking about how much, we'll have to get some cost stuff in and that. And so do you get money back from the grid if you export? Is there a cost
Yeah,
associated?
so
Yeah.
I get money back, but it was like sort of 12 or 13 cents a kilowatt hour, and I've got
Mm,
a feeling it's down to maybe 7 cents. In fact, so one of the things I did to prepare for today was to down, and I'll show you my. That's not the right one, but I've got my prices here. That was the other one. Here it is here. So I've actually got my bill here,
oh,
and
awesome.
I don't think there's anything super sensitive here. But if you have, and it's very confusing. I tell you, this is another thing
Mm,
about electric. I don't think they want to make it easy. I
no, I don't
think
think so
they want
either.
to make it hard. So I'm paying a service charge. So where's my solar retail buyback? 9.5 cents. Right,
Yeah,
so I'm
right.
getting 9.5 cents per kilowatt hour when I sell it back. But if you look at my peak consumption, it's 60 cents. I'm paying 60 cents at peak and selling it for basically 10 cents. So
Yeah.
there's a bit of arbitrage there.
Yeah,
If I can
absolutely.
sell my battery at basically an opportunity cost of 10 cents and then use it at 60 cents, then
Mm, mm.
payback becomes a completely different scenario.
Yeah, okay. So there's a big opportunity there. Okay, awesome. All right, that's perfect. Okay, so that's our export. Our import is how much you're bringing in from the grid
Yeah, so
overnight. Yeah,
pay.
I can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and at different times of day, I pay different rates based on the
yeah.
energy bill, and so we'll potentially look at mapping those tariff rates against my import and output, so then I can work
Mm.
out where my consumption is,
Get it pretty
etc.
granular, couldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay. So,
amazing actually what you can do with a very small amount of data. Now,
well,
obviously,
I
this
love
is
this. Yeah.
hmm,
Yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like with only one or two like measures or pieces of captured data, if you like, you can extrapolate a whole bunch of different insights, I think.
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And then self-consumption, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. You're consuming this much, and then this is how much you're producing overall. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Why don't we bring this into Power BI? So you've got a CSV folder full of files there.
Yeah, so just let me show you that. This one here. So I put all of my files in a data folder. Now, this is always my standard way
Mm,
I would do things. I'd have a master folder, and then I put a subfolder for data, and I
yep.
drop all of my files in there. And
Yep.
it just makes these are the things that you can do to prepare yourself to make your life easier.
Mm,
That means I don't have to filter out other stuff. So it's all in this
yeah.
subfolder
I
here.
do exactly the same thing for that reason. So it saves me filtering it when I bring it in.
All right,
Okay.
so let's get started. So
Yeah.
I'm going to get data, so brand new Power BI desktop file. Now, of course, I could select text CSV, but that's not what I need to do because I don't want to process a single file. I need
Mm.
to bring in a folder. So I'll connect to a folder. I hate this browse dialog box, so I always prefer to have
Just copy the path. Yep.
Yeah, just come in here, copy the path. It's so much easier. I'll show everyone. It takes you right back to the
Yeah, there's
beginning.
like
But it's just
it's
horrible.
like 1995 browse.
Exactly. Yeah, they'll get to it at some stage. All
Yep.
right. So here's the UI, and there's a whole lot of buttons. I always go combine and transform. It will do it automatically for us, of course, but chances are it's going to be wrong. So I always go combine and transform. That lets the wizard do the process steps. And I like to describe this as follows. File combine, it takes a sample file, and basically this wizard says, teach me how to process a single file.
Yeah.
Once I understand how to process a single file, I will repeat the process for every file that I find. That's the model of file combine. So it says, which sample file do you want me to use? Well, I just take the first one. And there's no option to manipulate the query now. And so we have to get into Power Query. And then with that in mind, here is the sample. Where's my pointer? So here is the sample file. So this is teach me how to deal with a sample file. And this second one is, okay, now I'll do it for every file that I find. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to this sample file, because this is the way that Power Query did it. It just basically loaded the flat table. It's not a bad guess, but this is not what we want. We need to do some modeling on this before we move forward.
Yep. Awesome.
I've got the little profiling turned on here.
Yeah,
You don't have to have. I mean, that's up here under column distribution, column profile. It slows things down a little bit, but it does give you an opportunity to see what's going on in your data.
Yeah, good quality check.
All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and I'm, you know this stuff, of course, Greg, is I'm going to split this time column, right? Because date time is one of the worst types of data columns you can load, because they're highly unique, and it's best practice to split a date time column. So I'm going to use the UI, come up here, and I'm going to transform split column. I'm going to do it based on the space, so delimiter. That's incorrect. I want the space, and I'll just do the leftmost delimiter, and basically that creates the date column and the time column for me. Now, a little thing that I like to do, so I've got my formula bar turned on here. You turn that on under View Formula Bar. So I always have that turned on. And I like to, I'm a bit of a hacker, good for a hackathon.
Yeah.
But I'm going to delete this change type step and come back here. And if you just look at the code, see how here it seems to be setting the default names for the new columns, time 1, time 2. Now, it did that automatically. And of course, I can change this to date. I mean, it's not wrong. But because I like to just learn how this works, I'm going to have a go at just changing the default name to date. And I'll change the default name number 2 to time.
Yeah.
And then the auto change type kicked in. And so I've sort of saved a step. Now, I'm not saying it's more efficient. I'm just saying I reckon I'm better at Power Query having done that and learned how it works than I was before I did that. So
yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. I like to, where there's, particularly with column splits and that kind of stuff, where it gives the column a name and it gives it that .1, .2 name. If you can go in and just put the name in there instead of adding another rename step, and those rename steps, they can cause you issues down track if you.
Yeah, and if nothing else, it makes your apply steps really long, and then you make a change, you delete, and blah blah. Yeah. All right, so the next thing, I would never load data like this. So I'm going to unpivot this data because we want to get.
I was going to ask you about this. So the unpivot thing, right? So I always unpivot as well, and then so do you think? But it slightly complicates your DAX down the road in that you've got attribute value pairs, right? So maybe we'll talk about it when we get to it. Rather than being able to say, give me the sum of the consumption column for consumption, you end up having to do a calculate the value column where the attribute equals consumption, right?
That's true. That is true. But these decisions. Now, this is a modeling decision we're making now, right? So, I like to talk about this is the architecture. So actually, what we're doing is we're doing the construction, right? but
Mm.
we're also doing the design architecture at the same time. We're making these decisions as we go. So yes, there's a trade-off, right? Because you can't just do some of the consumption column. However, if you think about it, there's other benefits, because if I take consumption plus my self-consumption plus what I import, or maybe it's self-consumption plus what I import, these two columns together should be a match for consumption.
Mm.
And so even though, yes, I'm adding one extra step, I'm actually making some other steps easier. And then when I try and overlay these things on a chart, I can use the column, the attribute column that you
Yeah.
talked about. So there's definitely trade-offs,
Mm.
but I guess as a general rule, what I say is if the data in all of these columns is similar in nature, then I would definitely unpivot it.
Yeah.
If one was a percentage, another one was a value, another one was a dollar, another one was a rate, you might consider it differently. It really depends.
Yeah, yeah, that was
There's no
exactly
one.
kind of where
There's
I
no
came
one
to.
right answer. Yeah.
No. It'd be interesting to know if there was any because we're going to a longer, thinner sort of fact table. Like that's considered best practice, and that from a performance point of view, we've only got 3 columns instead of 7 or whatever. But it's obviously significantly longer. Would be interesting to do a little test to see if it compressed better, or if there were, because
Yeah,
I presume that any repeated values would then get compressed, and so
that's right.
you're gonna have a certain amount of benefit, I think. So yeah, I'm with you. I always unpivot as well, or I try to when possible. But that
Yeah,
data type thing is a really important note. Is that
yeah,
if we've got text values or bool values or whatever, then you need to consider what you unpivot and what you don't, and maybe turn them into
exactly.
2 tables and stack them on top of each other or something.
Exactly, exactly. All right, so I'm going to unpivot. When I unpivot, I normally select the ones that I'm going to keep
Mm,
and right-click unpivot other columns. In this
yeah,
case, it doesn't really matter because the columns shouldn't change over time, but
yeah, yeah,
pretty easy stuff. All right, so then I jump in here, change the attribute, but of course, if I wanted to, I could come in here and change it here.
yep,
So I'll call this type, maybe something like that. Just make
yep,
sure. Now, one word of warning for everyone. If you make a change here and you get it wrong, it's very hard to fix it. You'll probably have to delete the step. So be very careful. I mean, look, if
mm,
you don't break eggs, you can't make a cake, right? So
yep,
you have to have a go, but you
yep,
will make some mistakes. Just be aware. There's no
yep.
undo. So you're in strife.
Yeah, you need to work out the syntax yourself, or
Yeah.
delete the step and try again. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, ultimately, most of the energy data in the world we do in kilowatt hours, right?
Mm,
This data is currently in watts, and
yeah.
so we need to. And so I'm actually going to rename this column kilowatt hours. In actual fact, I don't know. Maybe we should do the hours later because it's sort of energy over time makes kilowatt hours. I'll change it to kilowatts, but we need to convert this column.
Mm,
So I'll just do a transform standard divide by 1,000. That'll turn it into kilowatts.
yeah.
And this is probably too much. I mean, look, I think I'll keep it, but you really should make a decision. Do I need 6 decimal places?
What can
I'll
you get
keep
away
it
with?
because it's
Yeah.
a small data set. Another thing I would definitely do here is get rid of the zeros.
I would
Now,
too. Yeah.
now I'll get you a little tip here for everyone. Sometimes when you try and, I mean, this one's easy because there's no negative numbers. I can just come here and
Mm,
deselect the 0. But sometimes when you try and get rid of the zeros, you have a whole lot of negatives, and then somewhere way down here you've got the 0, and then a whole lot of positives. So this is a little trick that I use. I just pick any random number and deselect it, and then come and edit it and say 0.
nice.
So if
Yeah.
you've got a list of numbers, that's a good way to get rid of the zeros.
Save you scrolling.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So that's got rid of the zeros. Now, a bit of cleaning up. We need to get rid of this watts because it's no longer watts. It's kilowatts. In fact, I don't really need this stuff. So there's some space. You can see there's some spaces here. And
Yeah.
what I do is I come down to the bottom. In fact, it's a bit hard to see, but what I would do is come down to the bottom and copy this piece here, Control C, and then come up and do a transform, replace values. Find that and replace it with nothing. and that looks like it's cleaned it up. It's probably not a bad idea just to do a bit of a clean. So I'll just come format trim. So if there's any leading or lagging spaces, that'll get rid of them. And if you maybe also just do a clean, because that gets rid of any non-printing characters. That really depends on your data, but so that's fine. So look, I think this is pretty close. So that's the sample file. So this is the way we want to process a single file. Now we need to repeat it for every single file in the folder. But of course, this is broken because this is trying to find a whole lot of column names. Like there used to be a column called consumption W, or that doesn't exist anymore. Normally, you can fix this problem just by deleting the last step. And under normal circumstances, that fixes the problem.
Yeah. It's just that change type at the end, isn't it, where it's looking explicitly for those columns. So yeah.
Exactly, it's normally that one. So now this has given me the name of the file. I don't really need that. Although just keep in mind, sometimes keeping this file name can be good if you've got errors in your file. It helps you track down which file is the problem. But I think I'm good, so I'm going to remove that. And I should also set the data type. So I always multi-select, transform, detect data type. Most of the time it gets it correct. So
okay, cool.
So that's it.
That's a good one. All right,
so this is a good place to start.
Yeah, I think we've kind of had a good look at the data now. We've got a good idea of what it looks like. I think you've done some great work there transforming it. I do want to go into before we get into too much more modeling, let's take a step back because I'll get in trouble with my friend Alice, who always tells us to describe the business questions we're trying to answer. And let's write them down as just something to sort of drive our modeling from here on in. And also maybe if we can like sketch something or think about what we're going to put on.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, so I'll share my screen. I'll show you a little tool that I use for this kind of stuff. So I've got Power BI open. Let me just open PowerPoint.
So you use PowerPoint as your...
I use PowerPoint as my mock-up tool at the moment. This is something I only just recently started using, which is kind of cool. It's called Power Mockup.
Oh, right? Never heard of it.
No, it's a cost tool. Unfortunately, it can't just it's not a freebie, but it does have.
Sorry, off topic. That little show design suggestions that keep popping up. Do you like it?
I do like the design suggestions actually. Yeah.
I turned off the auto pop up. All right.
I like it if I'm quickly doing like a quick presentation and I just want to throw a design on it. But no, typically I'll do my own. Okay, so one of the things that this thing has is it's got like BI dashboard shapes, and they're old Power BI tiles, right? And so
who made this?
It's like a mock-up tool. It's online. It's called Power. Yeah, I don't know who made it. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's like it's pretty nifty though. So what I use is it for like when we're talking about, okay, we're going to throw some stuff on the page. Let's try and visualize it a little bit before we go too hard in it. But the other thing I wanted to do was let's talk a little bit about what you wanted to capture, right? So we wanted to capture obviously consumption by day. What I'd really like to do is maybe like a column chart that showed you like a typical day. So from sort of midnight to midnight, or maybe we'll reduce because we know that like from 7 to 7 or whenever the power typically starts, and then like how much consumption happens over the course of the day. But then maybe something we can select to show us either consumption or export, and it'll change the values in the graph to be the value associated with that. So that was one visualization. And then what I wanted to do is see, like, is today, so the second question I kind of have is the day we're looking at, how does that compare to other days? So what I was thinking is we had like an all-time max and then maybe an all-time average. And then you could see, well, at 12 o'clock or whatever, we got this much, but the all-time at 12 o'clock was this high. And so you should end up with kind of like this all-time curve that sort of goes like that over the top of the data, and then your bars will either be above or below, and then we could show the average and maybe a normal range or something like that if we got to it. So that was my idea for your data. Did you have any other thoughts around what you wanted to show? I know you spoke about whether you need, the other business question was whether you need a battery, right?
Yeah, so what I would need to do is I'd need to look at the consumption at time of day. So basically I would need to map the time of days against the tariff windows. So, so between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. is off peak, for example.
Okay.
So I'd need a bit of a table, I guess.
Mm.
Look, I don't know. Now, I totally agree with you about this mock-up stuff, but I want to sort of throw out a slightly different perspective on this, and that is that
Mm.
when you talk with a customer who knows their data really well and they're coming to you to build something for them,
Mm.
then I think this sort of mock-up approach is really powerful because it helps you get their ideas out of the head. But the key thing is that they know their data, right? They don't know
Mm.
Power BI.
Mm.
And so we're using this as a tool to help them with that. But in the case of this data, in this scenario, I actually don't really, I mean, I've got some ideas in my head, but I actually don't know the data. And so I like to
You
do a
want to
bit
do
of
an
explore.
explore?
Well, I
Mm.
like to just go and kick the tires, see what I've got.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
do some quick
Absolutely.
and dirty and learn as we go. And so I think both are appropriate.
Mm.
I guess I'm just throwing up there that we don't have to have a clear plan with no alternative before we start. We can learn as we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm all for an exploration session. So let's pause on this. I think I've kind of got that message across of what I was hoping to
Mhm.
see from that piece, and so you can
And you
kind of
haven't
head up from
seen
there.
the
And then,
data, right? I mean,
yeah, that's right. I've had
I did build a report a few years ago, so
okay. You've got
so
some.
I have got some understanding of what's coming, which is so all right, all good.
All right. Cool.
So let's go back to Power Query now. Just from a data modeling perspective, the other thing is that we should do a calendar table. Now, you could argue, well, okay, should I do a dimension table for the type column? I definitely want a calendar table because ultimately I know that I want to sort of group
Mm.
like weekends. I need to know the
Mm.
difference between weekends and weekdays for peak load power and stuff like that. So I definitely need a calendar table.
Yep.
I've got a calendar table that I've previously produced. I do have
Yep.
a blog article. I don't know if we can sort of share the. Or just
Yeah. Yeah.
quickly, if you just go to my blog, so shortcut for my blog is xbi.com.au, X for
Oh,
accelerator.
I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
always type
And
accelerator VI and spell it wrong. Yeah.
well, me too.
Yeah.
So XBI, and if you just search for Power Query Calendar,
Yeah.
I've written a whole blog article, and it teaches you how to build this one here, build a reusable calendar table.
I've
It
used it
does it
many times. Yep.
from scratch. All right, and I have a copy of it in my OneNote.
Yep.
So I'm just going to copy that code, come back to here, do a new query. It'll be a blank query. I switch to the advanced editor and paste the code. I obviously didn't copy it properly, so let me come back again. Control C, Control V, there we go. And just click done. And then I need to rename this calendar. All right, so I've got my calendar table. Now I could also produce a dimension table for the type column and also for the time. I actually don't know at this stage whether I need it or not. There is
Mm.
some merit in having it, particularly if you're going to start using, my rule is if you're going to start using calculate to manipulate the behavior of one of your columns in your fact table,
Mm.
you certainly should consider doing a dimension table,
Yep.
because by separating the filters into a dimension table, it actually simplifies the DAX to an
Mm.
extent. So my
Mm.
gut, and I don't know, but my gut feel is I should do that.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I'll just create a dimension table for the type. And so I'll just right click reference. That'll give me another table. This will be
Yep.
my consumption type. I don't like to put spaces in my table names. And then remove other columns, remove duplicates. Where's remove duplicate? There it is, remove duplicates. So there's my dimension table. And so that's it. Let's go ahead and load it up and see what
Cool.
happens. So 3 tables. Notice I got the new visualization
Yeah,
pane turned
I
on.
was admiring that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually quite like it. I think they've done a good job.
Yeah. Okay.
They kept that one quiet, but it's pretty good. All right,
Yep.
so switch over to the model. I always come to the model page first after I
Me
load
too.
data. Always, always, always come in here. So my consumption type automatically joined. And of course, I want to join the date with the date.
Hmm.
So that's good. So I
Do you
think,
subscribe to the Rob Colley sort of dimension tables flow down into the
yeah,
fact table and then make the fact table big? Because that's what I do.
I don't make the fact table. Well, I know he makes the fact table big, but I
Mm.
definitely physically lay them out. Dimension tables at the top,
Yep.
data tables or fact tables at the bottom. Absolutely. I cannot think about how the model works unless it's laid out that way.
Yep.
So I always do that. All right, so this is where I would start to just explore the data. So
Yep.
now, the first thing, if I bring in, the first thing I would typically do, now I've got this little date icon here. This is that stupid date hierarchy thing
Yep.
that
Yep.
everyone loves to hate. I'm going
Yep.
to turn that off. File, options and settings, options, come into current file data load and turn it off. Now, you can turn it off permanently. So under
Mm.
data load, there's a permanent one here.
Yep.
I leave it on because I train people
You
that
got
they
to
should
show
turn it
people.
off.
Yeah.
So I can't turn it off permanently. So that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. I have it turned off permanently, and then I always forget to tell other people, and they're like, "I've got this hierarchy." I'm like, "Oh, that's right." Yeah.
All right, now look, seriously, the first thing I would do with this data is just do a bit of kick the tires. What have I got?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to bring in a date, the date column. In fact, what I should do, also good advice, come into your tables, and on the many side of the relationship, hide the column, because
Mm.
the reason we've got the dimension table is we want to use that one for our filtering. So come in and hide these columns, just those two. And that way you won't be tempted to accidentally use the wrong column. So I try to do that if I can.
Yep.
All right, so I'm just going to kick the tires. So I'm going to load the dates, and I'm going to go to the data table, and I'm going to bring in and just do a count of the data. And I'm going to turn it into a column chart, just so that I can get a visual inspection of the data that I've loaded. Now, look, I knew this was here, right? I did check the
Mm.
data, but
Yep.
it's a really important lesson,
Absolutely.
is that instantly I can see I've got an issue. For
Mm.
some reason, I've seemed to have doubled up data around the 3rd of October, and I seem to be missing some data here around 12th of June. Now, unfortunately, I have to go. I actually don't know where it is. So this is a good example where, remember, I removed that. I don't know whether I can bring it back. Here it is here. So remember, I removed this column where I
Mm.
removed the name of the file. I'm just going
It's not that
to.
one. It's a couple down.
Thanks.
Yep.
That one
Top.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Paired programming.
Yep.
You can actually make less mistakes if you're doing stuff with someone else. All right, so how the hell am I going to do this? I wonder if I bring the source name as a tooltip. There you go.
Oh, nice.
So
Clever.
18th, so a file called 18th. It seems to be, actually, it seems to be the same file. 6th of October. Anyway, 1811, so file _47.4. Something's going on with that. Let me go back to the data. _47.4. Let's have a look at what's in here. So 3rd of the 10th. So that's 600 rows. That's the right number. But then I wonder if there's another one. I must have the data twice for some reason. All right, I'm just going to delete that file and see what happens. In fact, what I might do, I'll just delete it and I'll pull it out of the. Let's just refresh. You can refresh a single table, of course. Right click on the table, hit refresh.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh,
Okay, so
much
I
better.
don't know what's going on here. Underscore
46.
21_46. 21. Oh, It's just
No,
the whole,
yeah,
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 it's the 40, that one there, right?
yeah.
So what's going on here? So 600 rows. It's got 600 rows. So I guess look at this sort of, there's nothing. Okay, so to me, so this is 8. It's probably lost internet connection or something would be my guess.
Mm,
So, you can't fix data that's not there.
yeah,
I mean, we could try and recreate it, but all right, I think for the sake of the exercise, we'll just ignore that one.
yeah. So
All
that
right,
was
so yeah,
good though.
so
That's good.
yeah, good to know the data. Also notice that I mean, this is just a bit of a hash. Remember
Mm.
we removed the zeros, so there's more data points in January and December and less in winter. So
Yeah,
probably
you get a
means there's,
slight macro view of,
yeah,
because in the longer day, so that sort of is a view of how long the day is almost, isn't it? Like, yeah.
exactly, or yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all right. So let's just bring in the number now and have a look at this. So, okay, this is all over the place. Now, if we have a look at the data type, actually, where's my data type? I must have.
You
Oh,
put it in
of
your
course, I hit
consumption
it.
type.
I hit it. Now,
Yeah,
see, I'm.
yeah.
All right. So let's have a look at this. Let's just bring it up as a slicer and have a look. So we've got consumption. Okay, now this is per day. So,
Mm,
so from your rough plan, we talked about doing it by time of day. So
mm.
let's get rid of that and bring in the time instead of the date. And
Yes.
okay, so consumption is going up my peak time of day.
So this is
All
all
right,
days we're looking at.
this is all days, yeah. So
Mm.
and notice the peak. So we've got a peak here. These are my pull filters.
Yeah, yep, yep.
So over time, and if I picked a particular day, let's also bring a slicer in on date. We'll just pick a random date. Hate these things. What do we? Let's just pick the. Now this goes into the future to the end of the year, but let's say take 1st of November. Okay,
Cool.
consumption, export. Okay, no
Mm.
surprises.
Yep.
Import. I'm bringing in data when I'm bringing in stuff when I use my pump and system production. There you go. The
So
nice
that's your
smooth.
nice curve for how efficient your system is over
But
time.
this is for one day. If I
Yeah,
turn it off, okay, there we go. So over
it's a
all
very
time,
smooth. Yeah,
that's a very smooth curve. So
it's
some
beautiful.
overs and unders. Okay, so another thing I could do is instead of bringing this type in as a slicer, is I could bring the type in as a legend, and maybe I'll turn it into an area chart. Is there another area chart here? Stacked area chart. Now, at the moment, these aren't completely additive. Remember I said
Mm,
before that one of the benefits of pivoting was that we could sort of add the data together.
mm.
So if I take, so my consumption should be, what am I going to do here? Let's have a look. So if what I import, actually, I'm going to switch it over. But this is the exploration stuff that I was talking about.
Mm,
Right? I
mm.
don't really know what I'm doing. Import plus what I produce. So system production should be
So
the combination of what I export and. So I wonder if I do this. So that's if I overlay, make this
mm,
a line chart. So I want to be able to put. Now I need it stacked, but oops, no, that's the wrong stacked. This one here. Okay, so this now is what I'm exporting and what I'm self-consuming.
yeah, this is
Now,
great.
what I'd rather do is I'd have, well, let's overlay because the top of that chart should be my production.
That's right.
So I need a measure. I think it's time to write some measures.
Awesome.
I'm going to write a measure. And so now the other thing is this is kilowatts. And we really want kilowatt hours, that because at some stage we have to do we want to do some sort of pricing.
Comparison to pricing, yeah.
So I'd perhaps write a raw measure. Can you see this? Is this big enough?
Let's zoom it in
raw?
a little bit. Let's zoom it in a little bit just
Let's
for
try
people.
this.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, so raw kilowatt hours will be some of the, was it values? No, some of the data kilowatts. And then now, because the data's in
15-minute increments.
15-minute increments, you have to times it by 0.25. Right now, I can tell you I made a few mistakes when I first did this, but I'm pretty sure that's the correct.
That seems right. Yeah.
All right, so now I'll get rid of that raw number and I'll use kilowatt hours. And I'll just do a little bit of formatting. Let's just do decimal, maybe one decimal place would be enough. All right, so we've got our, and did I put that in there? Yeah. All right, so now what I want a system production line, because that's something that I'm going to want to use in my report. So I'm going to write a new measure, and this will be, I'll just call this one system production.
Yep.
And so this one is where, like you said before, Greg, is now I need to manipulate filtering behavior. It's a little bit harder because I can't just add up that one column. So I need to put a filter on the column. So I'm going to calculate the raw number. But before I do that, I want to put a filter on the type is equal to, and I've got to get the spelling exactly right, self-consumption. Right, so that's the measure. And now that I've got this as a standalone measure, I can use it as, if I turn this into a line. Oh, so this is interesting because I expected that line to follow, but obviously I've done something wrong. System production. Oh, I wrote the measure wrong. So I remember. So see, I deliberate error. Did you pick the deliberate error, Greg?
Yeah, I totally picked that up, and well done. Now we can
I mean, look, this is
that.
the reality. This is the reality, right? But I didn't actually know I'd written that incorrectly until I tried to visualize the data.
Before you hit enter on that, you've still written it incorrectly.
Have I?
System production, not consumption.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, so it's going to be blank otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Programming.
Yep.
All right, so there we go.
There we go.
So now it's just look at the difference of visualizing this data. I've got a hard-coded system production, and the logic is I can add my export and self-consumption. Let's just, I hate these colors. What can we do here? Format. Here we go. Let's just pick something a little bit better. Be nice. Yeah.
That was the original BI.
These aren't
that's a little bit better. It's a little bit better.
All right. So what about the stuff that I sell, right? So there's, exports, there's self-consumption. What about if I add import as well? So now really what I want to do is I need to change the order in which these work, because I see how I've got the self-consumption is at the top. I need self-consumption at the bottom, and then what I export on top of that, and then what I import on top of that. So I need to change the order of these. So I mean, different ways of doing this, but I might just do a calculated column. Well, no, I'll do
add a sort order in somewhere.
Yeah, I need to add a sort order. I think I'll do it back in the consumption table. So let's come back here. I would probably do this in Excel actually, but I don't want to jump into Excel. So add column, conditional column. So just let me get the logic right. I want the bottom. So the bottom one is currently export, which is it's like it's alphabetical order. So the one I want to the bottom is self-consumption. So I want self-consumption first, then export.
Okay.
So if type equals consumption, then I want one.
Yep.
If type equals export, Then I want 2. I guess I want import that next. If type equals import, I want 3. And the rest probably don't matter, but I have to.
You'll need to,
Yeah, system product.
So there's consumption and system production left to go.
A clause if type equals consumption. Yeah. No, consumption. These 2 don't really matter. And yeah, so you have to have a 1-for-1, otherwise you're going to cause a problem. All right, so now I've got that. I set that as a whole number. Just make sure that looks right. So self, export, import, yep. And then where's flick? Okay, and now I need to change the sort order to sort by the, not that one. I didn't rename it, right? So not to worry. I'm not going to worry about that.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so look how better that looks.
Just
by changing the order, because the logic of it all flows.
Yeah.
So myself, this is the opportunity. This light blue is the stuff that I'm selling, that I'm getting 10 cents for. And then look over here, I'm paying 60 cents over here for this, and I'm selling all of this for 10 cents.
Yeah.
There's 50 cents to be made for whatever the quantum of that that stuff is.
That's very cool.
So I don't know, I think I feel now I'd like to just explore that a little bit. So I'd like to know how much consumption do I have at the different tariffs? Does that sound okay?
Yeah,
so
sounds good.
If we have a look at, and I did a bit of prep here. So I downloaded this from Energy Australia.
Oh, awesome.
So this tells us that weekdays, weekends, what the tariffs are. And if you just take a step back and look at this, you say, this is going to be pretty complex. How am I going to do this? But I have done it before, and I'll tell you what I learned.
Yeah.
Notice the one on, if you ignore the orange on the left between weekdays, weekends, it's actually the same.
Yeah.
And so the way we're going to approach this is I'm just going to start off doing the green and the grey first.
Okay.
Right? And then I'm going to replace this little section for the weekdays.
Yep.
That's my plan.
Okay.
So and so I'm going to do it in Power Query. You can do it in calculated columns in DAX, but I'd like to keep my ETL separate from my other stuff. All right. So now we've got where are we going to put this? Interesting, because it's a combination of the date and the time.
So it'll have to be at the fact level, won't it? We'll have to say,
I think so. So this is an interesting challenge, right? Do we store this in the fact table? And I actually think it will simplify things a lot if we store it in the fact table. Otherwise, if we try and create 2-dimension tables, one for calendar, one for time, and somehow weave some magic to determine the tariff rates, there is definitely a use case for storing this type of data in the fact table. And this is one of them. All right, so we're going to add a condition. So we've already got let's go to the fact table. We've got the time and we've got I can get rid of this thing again now. So let's remove that. All right, so now in a minute, I'm going to need to know if it's a weekend or a weekday. But at the moment, I'm just going to apply this rule. All right, so I want from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. is going to be off peak. So let's do that first. So add a column, conditional column. So this will be the tariff. And I don't know how to spell tariff. I think that's right.
That's correct. Yeah, I think.
So if the time is greater than or equal to 11 p.m. 11. I think you can put times in here. Now, I don't have a less than or equal to. All right, but it's going to be, what was it? Off peak. there's no option here. Otherwise it's going to be peak. We'll call it shoulder for now. Let's just have a look.
Yeah.
Because it's so basically I'm doing the bit on the right, off peak and shoulder. All right, so it's going to be shoulder. Now I don't have option to do or less than or equal to 7 a.m.
If you add a clause, does that give us an and? No, it doesn't, does it?
No, in fact, I need to do it the other way. I need to say if it's, because I need to do from 7 to 11. I can't cross midnight. So if it's greater than or equal to 7 a.m., let's do that. Then it's shoulder. I need to do it the other way around, right? Otherwise it's off peak because I can't cross that.
Yep.
Can't cross that midnight. Otherwise I'm going to have to build all sorts of additional logic. It can't be greater than, oh, it's actually 10 p.m. too. So I said 11. All right. So if it's, so let's just click OK. There's no option to do or less than or equal to. And so once again, this is where this little bar comes in, because I can now come in and edit this. So if the time is greater than or equal to 7 a.m. and now the syntax is clear to me, I can say, and the time is less than or equal to, and now I can use the format now, which is hash lowercase time 1100. What have got a U in it?
Yeah, U. Yep. There we go.
All right. So let's have that. So I've got the two results. Nice. And let's just do a quick check. So now, sorry, it wasn't 11, it was 10. This is a hackathon, right?
That's right.
All right. So let's see. So at 7 a.m.
we should start seeing shoulder. We do.
It's from 7 a.m. the shoulder kicks in, and the shoulder should stay there until 10 p.m. Hang on.
10 a.m. 2200. So it's 24-hour time?
Ah, there we go. 10, so 22. That makes sense, of course. Okay, shoulder, 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 shoulder. Here's the kick. Okay, off peak is supposed to start at 10 p.m. I've got it starting at 10:15. So I need to get rid of the equals. Shoulder, shoulder. I mean, this is the reality, right? I don't know what the formula is. I'm trying to work it out. Okay, 9:45 is shoulder, and at 10 p.m. it goes to off peak.
Perfect.
And then it kicks back into shoulder at 7 a.m. Okay, so there we got it. We've got our first piece of the puzzle fixed. I'll change that to text. All right, so the next thing we need to do, let's come back to my plan, is that if it's a weekday, we need to replace what we've got with this peak piece. So we're going to need to determine the day of the week. So I'm going to add a column, day of week. What's this given me? This is giving me 0 to 6. I hate these things.
Pop in name of day so we can text.
All right, so well, let's do that as well. That's a good idea. So let's add in day name. Okay, so 6 is a Sunday, and so I'm assuming 0 must be a Saturday then, must it? 0 is a Monday. So we want 0, 1, 2, so 0 to 4 is a weekday. All right. All right, so let me get rid of these. So 0 to 4. So now what I need to say is I'll add another conditional column. No, I'll just write one this time. I'll add a custom column. I'll say if day of week, I didn't do it custom, it's greater than 0, then let's just say peak. Otherwise, we want the value from this column here, right? Otherwise, we want the tariff. So once again, I've hard coded it. So I want to say if day of week is greater than 0 and day of week is less than or equal to 4. In fact, this should be greater than or equal to 0. The it's greater than or equal to 0, and less than or equal to 4, then I want, oh no, and it has to be after 3 p.m. and before 9 p.m. as well.
Yeah, and tariff equals shoulder.
Well, the tariff's always going to be shoulder. I need the time. So I need the time be, greater than or equal to, and we use the hash time 7 a.m. 7, 0, 0. Was that right? No, it's 3
Yeah, I think
p.m.
that's right.
No, sorry, 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. So 3 is 15.
Sorry, yeah.
And there's 4 ands here. And time has to be less than or equal to hash time. This is much easier with the IntelliSense. What's the time? 9 p.m. 9 is 21, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the wrong place. I think that's right. Okay, so
That's good. All right. Test the theory.
I deleted one of my or maybe I just add that column back. It'll be easier so I know which day of the week it is. So day. All right, so we need a weekday. 600. Okay, so Monday in the afternoon. So off peak, shoulder. Peak kicks in at 3 p.m. That's correct. Peak stays in until so 9 p.m. should be off. 9 p.m. should be off peak. I've still got I haven't got shoulder coming back until 9:15, right?
Yep.
It's less than 9 p.m. So look, absolutely. I mean, this is actually one of the key learnings here, isn't it? Is your formula and check it, because you make mistakes. You do it in Excel. If you write formulas in Excel, you do it. All right. So this is actually the I get rid of this one. And this is the tariff. And this is a text. Once again, I could do a dimension table, but I'm not going to bother at this stage. I'm just going to have a look.
I think that's good.
So I'd probably I'm just going to do a new page here. Bring in my tariff, and now I don't have a measure for consumption at this stage, right? Because we've got this measure for system production. But I want to know. Well, maybe what I'll do is let me bring the raw number in, and then let's bring the
type in
as we'll do it as a matrix. Now this is a bit hard to see, so I think I'll switch them around, and maybe I'll do a column chart, conditional formatting data bars, just to help me visualize the numbers.
Yep.
So what are we looking at here? Let me increase the size here. Grid. So with the grid, if you come and change I've lost control. It used to, I used to be able to change the size of the grid. I don't know how to do it in the new.
Yeah, the new UI.
All right, I'll just I'll zoom in.
Values? Oh yeah, we can just zoom in. Okay.
So what's going on here?
Okay, so in the shoulder is when you do most of your everything. So because that's the biggest period of time.
Yeah.
Your import. So the good news for you is that you're importing more in off peak than you are in the peak.
Yeah. I need to filter this because I don't want, because this is doubling up, right? So self-consumption. Well, let's look at consumption, that's everything.
Yeah, that's total consumption, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's change it into a different visual. Okay, so that's interesting. So shoulder is biggest, but I got a lot of peak. I know not everyone likes this, but maybe this. So you can see 32%. So peak is 20% of my consumption.
Could we add this visual to the previous one, and then you could click on one of those and it would filter our other?
Looky. So peak. So this is
just consumption.
Yeah, let's come up and change edit interactions so that this one filters. Let's have a look at that. Okay, that's I'm not really sure why that's.
I think it's because it's only the consumption is the one thing we don't have in this other visual. So we'll need to. Consumption is the total, right?
Okay, use consumption, yeah.
Yeah.
But if I change it to a slicer, let me just do that. Peak. I'm not actually sure what's going on here, to be honest. Have I got the right? So type is right. Yeah, it's because I think of what's in here.
Maybe we just bring just the tariff in rather than the consumption. Yeah.
I got the wrong one. Sorry, that was my mistake. So what I needed was this one.
Yeah. Okay, now that should. Yeah, here we go.
All right, so that's peak consumption. So, I mean, it's no surprise, right? From that's 3 p.m. through. It'd be nice to be able to somehow overlay this on this chart here, but
maybe we could create a second chart down the bottom that shows us consumption by tariff.
So what we need we'd need the time of day. Yeah. So let me duplicate this, and let's get rid of. So we want to keep the time. Want to get rid of the type. Get rid of that one.
So then our column series will be tariff.
Column series will be tariff.
There we go.
Okay, so it's an interesting. Okay, so this is interesting. So see, we've actually got the overlay here. Now on this one, what we could do, I would probably want to get rid of the, do a little bit of visualize, get rid of the legend.
Yeah, and then we probably need to filter this to be consumption only. I think that's part of we've got import and consumption and export all happening.
Over here? Yeah.
Yeah, so type is just consumption.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, there we go. So that follows the same curve now. And then because of the weekend. So the weekends cause that top line of yellow.
This here? Yeah.
We got a little bit of conflation of colors here. We probably need to change the colors for the tariffs.
Down the bottom,
yeah. Yeah.
Columns.
Yep.
Let's do some. So off peak. Peak can be black.
Peak be black and then shoulder.
Shoulder you see grey, and I'll make this off peak and I can yellow. So
there we go.
Yeah, all right. So I mean, I picked a particular day here now. So this is cheap. This is mid-range. This is expensive. It's interesting because I mean, if I look at a winter month, let's go sort of mid-year. Look at how much bigger the peak is, because because you can see up here that my solar basically stops a lot earlier in the day, and therefore these bars are much bigger. So even late in the day, these bars are much bigger. Whereas if I sort of go to a summer day, like that we were looking sort of, was it 6th of January? These scales are changing around a little bit, I guess, but at least proportionately speaking, I don't have to pay as much in summer, although I do run my pool filter for a bit longer. Yeah, I wonder, I don't know how we're going for time.
We're getting a little short on time. I'd love to get to that cost stuff though.
Yeah, so why don't we just let's look at, these are the rates. So let's turn this into a table. I'll put the we want consumption, but it's what I import. That's what I pay for, right? And what I export. I think we sort of need both. So let's do this and type. So I'm selling this. We know that this is what I'm selling, and this is not quite 12 months worth of data, but let's just do it at an aggregate level. So what should I do? I'll write a measure that tells me how much am I getting for everything that I sell, because I know that's how much I've sold, because I've got a filter on export. So the way I would probably do this, I'd probably write a measure first for total export. So same as before, calculate the raw number where the type equals export. And I'm going to, as I build measures, I always like to stick them in, and just because I can eyeball them now. So I don't want this raw. I don't want that raw number in there. So export is 0. So yeah, it's a rounding issue. Just let me change the decimal places. All right, so same numbers. And now the cost, or the revenue, is going to be my export, and I know that I'm getting 0.95 cents. 0.095.
And is that blanket even during those tariff times?
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. Hey, they charge you at peak time, but they only give you
they only give you. So you really lose a lot at peak time, don't you?
All right, so that's it. That's what I've generated. So it's 23rd of November. So this year at those tariff rates, they've paid me $254. So let's work out how much
you would have saved if
I could use it all during peak. That might be a good calculation. The new measure. So we'll do the same thing again. So this will be total peak equals calculate the raw number. But first of all, I want the the type equal peak.
That'll be the consumption type will be consumption.
Yeah, sorry, it's the tariff. I'll write the first one. Tariff equals peak. Yeah, so you're saying you should also put a consumption.
I think you need to put the consumption type in as well.
It's import. It's import, isn't it? Because if I use my own cell, and so the type should be import.
And you got a little typo on next to peak there. It's a negative instead of an equals.
Thank you. Paired programming. Let's check. All right, so that should be a hard-coded formula. Okay, now this is interesting because it seems like it's wrong, but it's actually not wrong, because the peak, the imported peak is 1060, and this is correct. The issue is that because I've got the tariff in here,
Yeah, it's returning. It's overriding the tariff filter.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
way I like to fix this, I mean, because it's not wrong. If I said off peak is 0.1, but what's peak? Well, the answer is 1060. That's correct. But most people would expect to see sort of a blank here, see a 1060 here and a blank here. And I think the easiest way to do that is to wrap a keep filters around this. So I'll come up here, keep filters. Just wrap it around where I'm adding that peak. And what that does is if it finds a filter on the tariff column already, it keeps it. And so when I do that, it's just much more intuitive. And so that's a power tip for everyone if you're sort of writing a measure like this.
That's a great example for using keep filters, actually. That's one of the ones that it's fairly recent, and so people are still discovering that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's exactly. All right, so so let me now we're going to multiply this. So it was about 60 cents. So I think that's close enough. And it's different at different times of the year, but let me bring the number up again just so that you can see. So what have we got here? So peak, interesting. Off peak, peak. So 59.4, 60. And I don't know why there's no peak here. It's interesting. I don't know why there's no peak here. Anyway, it's 60 cents. Good enough, right?
Yeah.
Let's and I'm going to write. So this will be total paid for peak. So I need to take the total peak. This is an IntelliSense issue, so you shouldn't be putting the table name in front. Total peak times by 0.6. And let's have a look at that. So I've paid 636 bucks for peak. And so the difference, I'm actually a bit surprised. I expected more, but I think it's because it's such a short period of time in the day. I wonder if what I should do is, instead of doing total paid for peak, what I'll do is I'll multiply the peak by what I export for peak and the shoulder. I might just write another one for shoulder. I could probably do it with a SumX, but let's do another one.
Sure.
So total shoulder, calculate. Actually, what I'm going to do for this one, just reuse your measures. So if this is peak, I'm just going to copy the measure. Change that to shoulder. So particularly when you've got complex stuff, rather than reinventing the wheel, just copy the logic. Once you've got it working, it's tested. And then maybe my total paid, instead of being total paid for peak, I'll just say total paid for premium. That'll be the total peak times 0.6. I need to know what my shoulder rate is. So 30.8, 29, I'm just going to say 30 cents times shoulder times 0.3. Get rid of that. And the benefit of doing that, the way I wrote that formula, is notice how it's given me a subtotal for each row. So even though I've combined these two different portions of the formula together, because of the filter here, I've done the colors back. Because of the filter here, up there, it gives me the red bit, and then because of the filter here, this gives me the blue bit.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
then the additives. So there's $1,000 on the table. Now,
Mm,
of course, there's more to it. So I have to have my battery full with enough capacity when I need to pay for the peak power to be able to save that money. But at least on a pure, back of the envelope calculation, there's
mm,
$1,000
in
to
just
be
under a
had there.
year. Yeah. And so the total life of your battery bank will be, several years. You could amortize that. You could think
Yeah,
about,
10 years.
yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on how much a battery costs, of course.
Mm,
So
very interesting. All right, I think we'll call it there. That's great. So maybe we'll just go back to that first page and have a quick review of what we built, because that was really, really interesting. It was great to see you at work, Matt. It was awesome. So we've got a visualization here that shows us, depending on which day we select, or we can see it overall, not only just how much consumption or how much the solar panels are generating, but also like total power usage, and then what proportion of that is created by the solar panel. I think that's a great way to visualize that. I hadn't thought of visualizing it that way at all, so I thought that was great. And then below that, sort of as a second kind of thing, seeing which pieces are which hours are peak and off peak in terms of cost, and obviously that black bar is the one that we want to avoid, and so
yeah,
that's really cool. And then on the second page, you did your little back of the envelope calculation to show us those total costs. We wrote a couple of simple measures to generate not just how much we're exporting, but how much we're making off that, and then how much we could potentially save by installing a battery. I think that's a great little piece of Power BI. Not bad for an hour, sir.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, awesome.
terrific.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, Matt. Really appreciate it. What's the best way for people to contact you? What do you got going on at the moment? Do you want to point anyone in the direction of a website or anything like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I just come back to what I said before. So the
Mm,
short code for my website is xbi.com.au, and so you can always. I've got a contact form there. I do commercial consulting. If people would like to reach out to me, there's a contact form somewhere. I think it's down the bottom of the page. The other thing, if I could, Greg, just
hmm.
briefly, is just to tell people about skillwave.training. So
Yep.
this is a joint venture that I have with Ken Pools. He's based in Canada, also an MVP. And we have a stack of online training courses. They're all pretty much video on demand. Some of them have instructor-led components as well. And we pride ourselves on having the best quality Power BI training that's available. And there's a stack of stuff that's available there. So that's skillwave.training.
Awesome. Can confirm. I'm a subscriber to Skillwave. You've got some great little courses there, so I do recommend people to check out Skillwave. Well, that's it, Matt. We did it. Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate
That's
the opportunity.
been awesome. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time on Power BI Hack.